equipment, a lot of equipment has come. We have got 57 speedboats today for patrolling of the coastline. Equipment-wise, we are very, very good. Mental preparedness is what we are stressing on today.
Hello.
Your question, you need to answer them.
Hello. Good evening.
See, when you ask my favorite case, I have not been an investigator. I have been a reporter or a journalist. I only report on what officers like Mr. Maria investigate and crack. But just to answer your question briefly, 93 is my the story which I love the best, for the reason that in those days there was no electronic surveillance, no narco analysis, truth serum, there was no lie detector test, there were no technological advancements in those days to crack a case. And still that case was cracked in less than 24 hours, just on the basis of the car registration number which Mr. Maria's men had seized from Worli. Like, imagine that today, FBI finds so difficult to crack so many cases, but in those days, 93, when our cops didn't have those kind of facilities and technological stuff, they managed to crack this case. So for me, that is my most favorite story.
Yeah. Good evening, sir, and all of you are present over here. So, it was right.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, it's somebody else.
My question is to Maria, sir. Sir, you are a top cop, and you deal with.
Don't say that. Don't say that. That is a thing given by the organizers today.
So that's what I prayed.
I am a cop. There's no denying that.
And then you deal with all these terror activities and all. So my question is simple: do you fear for your life? You're dealing with so many dangerous stuff going around.
You see, fear is something not to be ashamed of, as long as you don't allow it to conquer you. If the moment you joined service, you knew what you were in for. And being posted in a city like Mumbai, with its underworld, with its terror modules, one knows that you are dealing with the scum of the earth. So it is part of working. Yes, it does frighten me, because it doesn't frighten me for myself, but it frightens me for my wife, for my sons, because the threat calls come to them, the abusive calls come to them, the letters come to them, threatening them. My sons, in their schools, there were 2 evacuation exercises. The telephone calls to their schools saying that because they were my children, there was a bomb kept in the tiffin box in the school, the whole school had to be evacuated. So, these are things which hurt and which frighten you to some extent. But I'm quite thankful to my family, which doesn't allow this fear to come onto me. So I think it's part of the job.
Sir, I wanted to know, how do you transfer learning in your police force? For example, there is a murder in Baikala, and there is a learning in that case. And how?
Lessons, okay.
How do you transfer learning in police force? For example, there is a murder in Baikala, and that learning could be applicable to somebody in a Andheri constable or something. Do you look at a vehicle of Ravi to kind of convert it to a one-page story to pass on the learning to others in the department? I mean, is there some vehicle or some...
See, I would definitely be using the services of Ravi to come and give a talk to the EOW now. Now, as regards murder and other cases, we have what is called case studies. In all important cases, once the case is investigated, it is charge sheeted. The investigating agency puts up what is called case studies. Those case studies are then put up before constables, before men, the officers, so that they also can learn how it was detected, the mistakes that were made. Suppose that case, if a case is acquitted, as he mentioned about acquittals in when the acquittal takes place, the reasons for acquittal, that is also, there is a post-mortem which is done.
I want some lady to ask a question,
Hello.
please. Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Mr. Maria, like you said to Maria Susairaj, Madam, you're my number one suspect. I'm sure you've come across a lot of cases where your guts or your instincts have told you that there's something wrong with this person in front of you. So when you are telling that person, do you always tell that person that, like you told Maria, is that a process of, probably a psychological breakdown or to unnerve the person? How does it go about?
See, in most cases, one would not directly tell the person that you are my number one suspect. In Maria Susairaj's case, she came along with 4 of Neeraj Grover's friends to my office. And they came to complain that the local police station I was that time joint CP crime. So she came along with these friends and they came to complain that the local police station was not taking Neeraj Grover's missing complaint seriously. They said, we went to the police station said, oh, Goa gaya hoga, maja marne ke liye gaya hoga. So you go to the police station. So they came to tell me that. Now, unknown to her, Neeraj Grover's father had already come and met me one day earlier. And he told me that his son was missing. The last person with whom his son was seen was Maria Susairaj. And, I gleaned out the basic details from him. And when she came and she sat there, and, one could see the genuine concern on the faces of the remaining 4 friends and the confidence on her face, on a face that thing was not there, that somebody is missing. So that is why I told her on her face with the intention that I would break her. Psychologically, she would know that she is a suspect and she would make a mistake, which she did. She immediately went back and got in touch with Emil Jerome, the boyfriend, and told him that they are suspecting me, I am now scared. So, sometimes psychologically to break the person, most of the time, no, we let our suspicions remain with us and we let our gut feeling guide the investigation subsequently.
Hello, Rakesh Maria sir. My question is Rakesh Maria sir. In your long stint of career, how do you handle political pressure and how will you tackle your emotional things? Like in book it is written that on 26th number your son was going to Aurangabad, right? So, Ahmednagar. So means as a human being, how do you handle all the political pressure and means emotional things? And when one question to Jayadi sir also praised that his book Dongri to Dubai is the extraordinary book I have read. In whatever mood I read, this is this extraordinary book, the crossword bestseller. And apart from the crime book, it is so interesting from right from to Haji Mastan to Karim Lala group to the recent to Dawood Ibrahim and all these things. I think no book is better than this. Whatever mood I am, whenever I read, it is extraordinary book. Dongri to Dubai.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
See, regarding political pressure, you see, the politicians will push you if you allow yourself to be pushed. If you are not allowing yourself to be pushed and you make your work speak for yourself, I think it takes care of, nobody dare tell you arrest so-and-so or release so-and-so. And fortunately, in a state like Maharashtra, I don't think, unlike what the film people project, the Singham style and this style and that, I don't think it happens in Maharashtra. You see, the press is very aware today. Breaking news is, it's...
Sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Maria, but there was this recent story about a week back about a so-and-so from Maharashtra calling up a so-and-so in Goa saying, please release my son.
See,
Now, that kind of a thing.
He asked me about Maharashtra. I'm talking about Maharashtra. In Maharashtra, I think compared to the rest of the country, most of you have visited the rest of the country, the rule of law is still there. Is still there. The respect for the police is still there. You see, the politicians, if I keep going and sitting down with the politician for a certain posting, for a certain transfer, then he or she knows this person has come to me for this work. If I extend this favor, I can ask for my pound of flesh subsequently. I don't think that happens here, especially in sensational cases with so much media focus. It is very, very difficult.
Last two questions, please. We are short on time now. Yes.
Hussain,
Mike, please.
I was adopted for it. My one question is to Ravi. You talked about the financial crime. So, relating to that, considering in an age where a lot of foreign banks are operating in India, do we still have the fear of money being routed through them? And my other question is to Mr. Maria. You narrate a story about Dr. Jali Sansari where you had told him that his religion, as in he used to justify his acts by his religion, and you had told him that had your God been with you, we wouldn't have been able to arrest you. Does the same trick work anymore with the current crop of terrorists? And second question about the financial crimes again with you. Have you considered taking help of private financial investigators, forensic investigators? Thank you.
You'll answer first, no? You answer. You see, what you're talking of Dr. Jali Sansari, where when he was not breaking down, he was, I told him that you have committed this crime because you feel there is a sense of persecution which is there in your mind. If you do not confess, how will the public know why you did this crime? So he agreed to what I said, and he said, will you put it in my statement? I said, I will put it in your statement why you are indulging in terror crime. And he agreed, and he gave us 55 bomb blasts in various parts of the country. See, again, repeating myself, what the film industry shows is not true. You have that bulb on top, one fellow sitting down there, that burly cop standing and staring at him. It doesn't work like that. Today's criminal, third degree does not work. You have to break them psychologically. You have to, in Hussein's book, Black Friday, 1993, yes, one of the reasons why the case was detected was because of that key of that scooter which we found. But there was a chap known as Asghar Muqaddam, who was the manager of Tiger Memon. When he was arrested, he was the first person. See, when we reached Tiger Memon's house because of that key, we knew Tiger Memon was involved. By the time we reached his house, Tiger Memon had already left for Dubai. He had already left on 12th March early morning. Before the blast, he had gone to Dubai. So how can we find out? Local inquiries revealed that he had a boy by the name of Asghar Muqaddam who was his manager and looked after his entire affairs. So we brought him. The moment we brought him, he said, sir, I have left this job 6-8 months back. I am not involved in this case. I don't know. This Tiger Memon used to abuse me. So I don't know what this case is about. The way he used to look at his uncle and aunt while answering these questions, one saw that his parents, his mother and father also were there, his uncle and aunt also were there. But he looked to be more attached to his uncle and aunt. So then I asked my officer, I said, who are these people? They said, they are his uncle and aunt, and he has been adopted by them from childhood. So we put a question to the uncle and aunt that you know about this case and you are protecting him. That is why he is not telling the truth. The moment this question was asked of his uncle and aunt, he looked at me and he told me, Saab, aapse akele mein baat karna hai, you ask everybody to leave. So the room was vacated, everybody was asked to leave the room. Asghar Muqaddam and myself sat in the room. He told me, sir, I will tell you the whole story on one condition. You ask my uncle and aunt to leave from here. I called, rang the bell. I called the constable. I said, just put them in a taxi and send them away from here. And he gave us the whole story of the 1993, this, how it was planned, how they went for training, how they did the recce of the various locations. So different cases, the same technique cannot be applied. But the most important thing is today you need to psychologically break, whether it's an underworld accused or whether it is a terror accused or he is a hardened dacoit or robber, you need to psychologically break them. The day of third degrees is gone.
And on that question of whether it's the foreign banks or the nationalized banks, I think that differentiation is fast going away in this country at this point in time. Foreign banks are as much accountable as nationalized banks, but if you look at the degree of ease, it's actually easy to launder money through the nationalized banks because of the large network involved, because of thousands of people who could actually be tapped to do these nefarious activities. So the risk today is larger in the case of nationalized banks than it is in the case of foreign banks. I use foreign banks in a story because using foreign banks in a story lends it a slightly glamorous feel. So it looks good if you actually talk about committing a crime. If I talk about State Bank of India and money laundering, there will be 20 people breathing down my neck saying, what the hell is happening?
Last question, please.
Good evening, esteemed panelists. My name is Jay Singh. My question is to Mr. Ravi. This is specifically to deal with your book Bankster, because after reading that, being myself an ex-banker, I could relate to it very easily. So talking about that, what do you think is happening in the retail banking sector right now in India? I mean, are the banks pushing the employees too much to get the sales that they are actually turning from a banker to a bankster? Because a banker is supposed to have a fiduciary duty on their shoulders towards the customers. They're actually handling their life-earned money. So, like, is there a lot of pressure happening over there? So, like, can you answer that as being a banker yourself? Can you answer that as a banker?
I think there are 2-3 things happening in the banking world today. If you go back about a decade in the banking and financial services industry, or maybe even more than a decade, banks used to be deposit gatherers. That's about it. You take deposits from customers, pay them small interest rate, give out some small loans, make the margin, and that's about it. The moment this financial and investment management thing came into being in banks, that's when the entire problem started. Now, what's happening is RMs have transformed from looking at customer interest to revenue targets. Okay, I pay an RM 5 lakh of rupees a year. He has to get me 15 lakhs of revenue a year for him to justify his presence in the bank. That's the way it's transformed. So if a customer comes to you to complain about his bank account, and a customer comes in to invest 20 lakhs in a mutual fund, now you run more after the 20 lakh and the existing customer be damned. And that's what is happening today. And that's all happening because incentive structures are all based on sales. They're not based on customer satisfaction.